Have you ever wondered why he keeps coming back? Why he watches you in silence? Why your presence lingers in his thoughts even when you're not around? He may not be able to explain it, he might even deny it, but deep down, something in him is drawn to you again and again. It's not about what you wear, what you say, or how you look. This isn't attraction in the way the world usually describes it. This is something quiet, deep, more ancient. Carl Jung, one of the most influential voices in psychology, believed that human behavior is rarely conscious, that much of what we feel, crave, or chase is driven by invisible forces within the unconscious mind. According to Jung, we don't just fall for people because of charm or logic. We are pulled, often without understanding why. And when a man is magnetized by you, it's not always you he's seeing. It's something you've awakened in him. A mirror, a symbol, a reflection of what he has lost or what he's never allowed himself to become. You may have noticed it before. A man begins to orbit you. He finds excuses to reach out. He becomes uncharacteristically nervous or attentive. He may try to play it cool, acting different, but energy doesn't lie. Something in him is responding to you, and it's happening far beneath the surface. You didn't choose this power. You didn't even ask for it, and yet, it's there. And the more unaware you are of it, the more powerful it becomes. So what exactly is happening when he starts chasing you, even when you've done nothing at all? This is where it begins. Because you're not just a woman in his eyes. You are an activation, a signal force that stirs what he thought was buried. And what follows isn't just pursuit. It's instinct, it's projection. It is unconscious, calling him towards something it cannot ignore. And no, he won't be able to explain it. But his psyche already knows, and it remembers you. Carl Jung did not view attraction as a matter of logic or surface preference. He believed that the relationships we form, especially those that feel magnetic or inexplicable, are not accidental. They are expressions of something far more mysterious, an unconscious architecture that guides us, often without our awareness. When a man begins to pursue you with the kind of restless curiosity, what he is chasing may not be you as a person. What he is responding to is an image, a feeling, a forgotten part of himself that your presence somehow evokes. In Jungian psychology, this phenomenon is known as projection. The unconscious mind, filled with symbols, memories, and unmet longings, looks for mirrors in the outside world. When he meets you and something in you resonates with the image buried inside him, the projection begins. You become more than a woman in his story. You become a screen onto which his psyche casts an inner narrative, a story he has not yet lived, a desire he has not yet named. Jung went further by introducing the concept of the anima, the inner feminine image that lives in every man's unconscious. This isn't about gender roles or societal conditioning. It's about the psychological truth that every human psyche carries both masculine and feminine elements. The anima is not just a symbol of femininity. It represents emotion, intuition, sensitivity, creativity, the very qualities a man may have denied, rejected, or never allowed himself to express. When you awaken those qualities in him, consciously or not, it touches something ancient, something archetypal. This is why the pull can feel irrational even to him. You are not simply someone he finds attractive. You are someone his soul recognizes. You mirror something he has long forgotten or never dared to explore. He chases because you activate. You activate because your energy carries a pattern his unconscious was waiting for. Jung believed that archetypes, universal patterns like the lover, the mother, the muse live deep within the collective unconscious. When a woman unknowingly expresses one of these energies, she becomes more than a person. She becomes a symbol with the power to awaken, to haunt, and to change a man's inner world. And once awakened, he cannot unsee it. His desire becomes tethered to something he cannot explain, and he begins to chase not just you, but the part of himself that he now sees reflected in your presence. One of the most irresistible habits that makes a man chase you is not something you say. It's not a look, a gesture, or a clever line. It's your silence, your calm, your presence. The energy you carry without effort, the kind that enters a room before you do and lingers long after you've gone. This is the quiet power most women underestimate, and yet, it is the very thing that draws him in deeper than words ever could. Carl Jung spoke often about archetypes, those timeless patterns of human behavior and experience stored in the collective unconscious. One of the most powerful is the feminine figure who does not perform, who does not chase, who simply is. She is the embodiment of presence. She holds her space without apology. She doesn't speak to be heard. She doesn't move to be seen. She exists in her own rhythm, and that rhythm is magnetic to the masculine psyche. When you embody this archetype, what you might describe as the symbolic muse or sacred feminine, you awaken something deep in him. Not his mind, but his instinct. His animal responds not to noise, but to stillness, not to validation, but to mystery. Your quiet becomes a canvas where he begins to project not just curiosity, but reverence. He starts wondering who you are, what you think, what you feel behind the calm. And in that wondering, his chase begins. This is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of depth, of self-awareness, of someone who no longer needs to prove her worth through volume. This is the kind of woman who has been overlooked before, misunderstood, even ignored by those too distracted to notice stillness, strength. But to the man attuned to deeper frequencies, that stillness speaks volumes. He watches how you sit with yourself, how you listen, how you pause before responding. In a world obsessed with noise, your restraint becomes a kind of rebellion. You do not need to fight for space. You already own it. And he feels that. He feels it in your gaze, your breath, your presence. Without effort, without performance, you become unforgettable. Jung believed that true attraction happens when the unconscious finds what it has been missing. Your quiet confidence is not just attractive, it is archetypal. It reminds him of a deeper order, a feminine presence that cannot be chased in the traditional sense, only approached with awareness, and if he's lucky, received. And so, without saying much at all, you make him pay attention, to your words, but to your essence. Not to what you do, but to what you are. And that kind of energy is never forgotten. It lives in his memory like a whisper, calling him back to you again and again. There is a paradox most people never understand until it's too late. The more you chase someone, the faster they slip away. The more you try to hold on, the more they pull back. But when you stop chasing, when you step back, not out of fear or pride, but from calm certainty, that's when something unexpected begins. That is, when he starts moving toward you. Carl Jung would not be surprised by this. In fact, he would argue that it is not just behavioral, but deeply psychological. The masculine unconscious does not respond to pressure. It responds to polarity. It seeks freedom, space, and the opportunity to choose. And when a woman detaches from the need to be chosen, she unconsciously signals something far more powerful. She already belongs to herself. The Stoics taught a similar truth. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." A man, whether he realizes it or not, values freedom more than comfort. When he senses you are trying to possess him, convince him, or adjust yourself to earn his attention, a part of his instinct shuts down. It is not personal. It is energetic. He feels pursued, and his unconscious recoils. The more available you make yourself in desperation, the more he perceives you as already taken by need, not by self-worth. But when you pull back with grace, when your energy says, "I am whole either way," something begins to shift inside him. He feels the absence of pressure. He feels the quiet invitation of your space. And in that space, his unconscious begins to project your desperation, but your power. He starts to wonder. He starts to reach. He begins to chase. Jung would say this is the anima at work once more, of the woman as a person, but the woman as symbol. She becomes the unattainable ideal that lives within him. She represents something he wants to integrate: calm, depth, intuition, the mystery of the feminine. But here's the key. That symbol cannot be seized. It must be approached, and only when she is not grasping does she fully come into view. This does not mean playing games. It means alignment. It means not acting from lack, but from fullness. It means walking away to provoke, but because you know what you deserve. When you stop chasing, you signal that your presence is a privilege, not a plea. You let him feel your absence, and in that absence, he meets his longing. What makes a man chase is not the woman who tries to win him, but the woman who does not need to. She is present, but detached, warm, but not desperate, available, but not seeking. That balance, that restraint creates a vacuum, and the masculine is pulled toward that vacuum with a desire he cannot fully name. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to fight for closeness, to hold on tighter, pause, pull back, let go, not as a tactic, but as a return to yourself. In doing so, you remind him of something primal, that real connection cannot be demanded. It can only be drawn in not through pursuit, but through presence, not through pressure, but through power. There is something sacred about the gaze that lingers, not the kind filled with tension or performance, but the quiet, steady eye contact that says more than any words ever could. When a woman holds a man's gaze without fear, without need, without looking away too quickly, something begins to shift in him. He feels seen, not as a role or an identity, but as a soul. Carl Jung believed the eyes are not simply sensory organs. They are portals into the unconscious. When we look into someone's eyes, and they truly meet us, we are not just seeing the surface. We are witnessing the archetype behind the form, the soul behind the face. And when a man encounters a woman whose gaze reaches that deep, it touches something within him that has no language. It awakens his anima, that inner image of the feminine that has lived inside him since the beginning. Not shaped by logic, but by dreams. Not formed through culture, but through longing. Her face may change, her voice may differ, but her eyes remain. They are the symbol of recognition. And when your gaze mirrors that image, something ancient rises to meet it. He may not know why he suddenly feels exposed, or why his chest tightens when your eyes meet his, but his psyche does. It remembers. It remembers the sacred feminine who holds space without judgment, who sees beyond achievement and armor, who looks not just at the man, but into the places he hides from the world, and maybe even from himself. This kind of gaze does not beg, it does not seduce, it does not demand. It simply remains. It observes, it receives, and it reveals. You do not have to speak to express this energy. You do not have to try to be understood. Your eyes say what your mouth cannot. That you are here, that you are whole, that you are watching with presence, not with expectation. In that moment, time bends, conversation softens, the rest of the world fades, and if he doesn't know what is happening, a part of him cannot look away, because he is not just meeting you, he is meeting himself in your reflection. You knew this power. He spoke of it in dreams, in symbols, in the deep patterns of the psyche, and you, in your silence, carry that wisdom in your eyes. You do not need to chase. You only need to hold still and see, truly see. That is what he feels. That is why he stays. Not because of what you show, but because of what you reflect. There is a part of you he cannot quite name, a thought unfinished, a question without an answer. It lingers in the spaces between your words, in the way you smile but hold something back, in the way you are fully present but never entirely revealed. And it is that very space, that quiet distance between what he sees and what he senses, that keeps him drawn to you. Carl Jung believed that mystery is not confusion, it is depth. It is the presence of something not yet integrated, something the conscious mind cannot fully grasp, but the unconscious recognizes. When a woman carries herself with calm self-containment, when she does not overshare or over-explain, when she does not offer every corner of her life to be known immediately, she evokes the sense of mystery, and mystery invites exploration. You do not need to pretend to be distant. You simply need to honor the truth that not everything about you is meant to be given away too soon. There are parts of your inner world, your thoughts, your grief, your joy, your silence, that are sacred. When you protect them with gentle discretion, you become more than a person. You become an experience. He feels this in ways he cannot articulate. He finds himself thinking of you long after you part, replaying your voice, wondering what you were really thinking, wanting more, but not out of frustration, out of fascination. Your presence becomes a thread in his mind, pulling him towards something he does not yet understand. Jung spoke of archetypes that live beneath the surface. The lover, the muse, the wise woman. These are not roles you act out. They are energies that arise when you no longer rush to be understood, when you allow your presence to breathe, when you are comfortable with not being completely known. The truth is, people chase what they cannot fully hold not because they want to possess it, but because they want to be changed by it. When a man senses that you are more than what you show, that your spirit holds a world he has yet to enter, he does not walk away. He leans in, and he may not know why, he may question it, resist it, even try to ignore it, but something in him will return. Not to what you say, not even to what you do, but to what you hold. The part you do not explain, the part that stays quiet, the part that waits. That is the pull he cannot escape. That is the mystery he wants to understand, even if he never fully will. Sometimes the most powerful word you will ever say is the one you do not speak out loud. It is the pause after a question, the glance that says enough, the message left unread, the invitation left unanswered. This is the quiet no, and it carries more strength than 1,000 explanations. To know how to say no without conflict, without apology, without needing to justify yourself, is to reclaim your inner authority. Carl Jung believed that when a person begins to live from their true self, they stop performing for others. They stop bending themselves into shapes to fit into spaces that were never meant for them. The self does not explain, it chooses. When a woman walks in this energy, her silence becomes a boundary. She does not need to raise her voice to be heard. She does not need to argue to be respected. Her refusal is felt, not announced. It is in her calm withdrawal. It is in the dignity of her non-response. And in a world that expects women to please, to soothe, to always be agreeable, that quiet refusal is revolutionary. You do not owe your time to everyone who asks for it. You do not owe your body, your energy, your forgiveness, or your attention to those who have not earned it. You are allowed to protect your space. You are allowed to choose peace over explanation. You are allowed to walk away from what drains you without offering reasons that no one is entitled to hear. Jung wrote that the unconscious will guide us, but only if we learn to listen. That listening begins with the body, with the tightening in your chest when something feels off, with the weight behind your eyes when a boundary has been crossed. These are not weaknesses. These are signals. They are your inner wisdom trying to speak. When you stop overriding those signals with politeness, you begin to step into your power. You become the kind of woman who is not easy to manipulate. Not because you are cold, but because you are clear. And that clarity is magnetic. Men feel this energy. They sense the line, even when it is unspoken. They may test it, but when your no comes through stillness, through presence, through a lack of reaction, they know it is real. There is no drama. There is no begging. There is only space where there once was access. And that absence teaches them more than any confrontation ever could. This is how you earn respect. Not by demanding it, but by embodying it. Not by fighting for it, but by refusing to betray yourself for the sake of being liked. You do not have to say no with anger. You can say it with stillness, with a soft gaze, with silence that does not waver. That is the kind of no he remembers. That is the kind of no that changes everything. And in that silence, you do not push him away. You invite him to rise, to meet you where you stand, or to walk away. Either way, you remain whole. There is a particular kind of woman who leaves a lasting impression. Not because she is loud or unpredictable or always trying to be remembered, but because she is consistent. Her words align with her actions. Her presence matches her intent. And even when a man cannot fully figure her out, he finds that he cannot stop thinking about her. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious craves coherence. It seeks patterns, signals, things that feel both safe and meaningful. When a man encounters a woman who is steady in her self-expression, who does not say one thing and do another, his psyche takes notice, because in a world of contradiction, inconsistency, and emotional chaos, she becomes something rare, something grounding. And yet, she is not predictable in a dull or mechanical way. There is mystery, yes, but it is not the mystery of confusion. It is the mystery of depth. He knows what she stands for, but not everything she contains. He trusts her energy, but still wants to learn more. She becomes an anchor, but never a conclusion. Jung would describe this as the integration of the conscious and unconscious self. The woman who lives from this place has confronted her shadow. She is not driven by old wounds she has not yet faced. She does not need to manipulate to feel seen, or to create drama to feel wanted. Her steadiness is not a performance. It is the result of inner work. When her words carry weight, when her actions follow through, when her boundaries are not spoken in anger, but shown in consistency, he feels something he may not have felt in a long time. Clarity to the male psyche, shaped by years of mixed signals and unresolved maternal patterns, is deeply attractive. He may have grown used to chasing chaos, to feeling addicted to emotional highs and lows. But when he meets a woman who is both warm and solid, intuitive and grounded, his nervous system relaxes. And in that relaxation, desire begins to take root. Not from adrenaline, but from resonance. This is what makes her unforgettable. She is not erratic, she is real, and her reality gives him something to trust, even if he does not yet understand it. He may test her, intentionally or not, but when she does not shift to please him, when she stays aligned with who she is, a deeper part of him begins to chase not her validation, but the peace he feels around her. That peace is not loud, it is not dramatic, but it lingers, and it stays with him long after she has left the room. There is a kind of presence that cannot be taught. It does not come from appearance, achievement, or performance. It comes from embodiment, from a woman who has made peace with her own nature, who no longer tries to prove, persuade, or perfect herself for the world. Her confidence is not loud. It is not sharp. It is felt quietly, unmistakably through every breath she takes. Carl Jung spoke of the anima as the inner feminine image that lives in every man's unconscious. But what is often forgotten is that this archetype is not only something men project onto women, it is something women can embody. When a woman becomes whole within herself, when she integrates softness with strength, emotion with wisdom, with shadow, she steps into this archetypal energy. She becomes not just feminine in form, but in essence, this woman, when she enters a space, she does not need to dominate it. She simply belongs. Her energy is receptive, not passive, grounded, not rigid. She listens before she speaks. She moves with intention, not urgency. There is no grasping in her, no chasing. She trusts the rhythm of life, because she trusts herself within it. This kind of presence calls to the deepest part of a man, to his ego, but to his soul. She awakens in him what he has buried, the longing for wholeness, for union, for meaning beyond the surface. And though he may not know how to name it, he feels it. He feels it in her stillness, in her gaze, in the way she holds herself, not above others, but firmly within herself. She is not trying to become anything. She is simply remembering who she already is. And that remembrance is magnetic. This is the woman who does not compete, who does not beg, who does not shrink or inflate to make others comfortable. She lives from the center of her being, and in doing so, she gives others permission to return to their own. Jung would say she has met her own unconscious. She has sat with her shadows, embraced her contradictions, and come out the other side, not broken, but whole. That wholeness is what men chase, not the illusion of perfection, but the reality of depth, the safety of truth. Because in a world of fragments, a woman who is whole becomes a mirror, and in her reflection, he sees not just her, he sees who he might become. If you saw yourself in these words, even just a glimpse, then know this: you are not alone. These habits are not performances to be mastered. They are reflections of who you already are underneath the noise, beneath the pressure, behind the expectations. They are the quiet truth that have always lived inside you, waiting for you to trust them. Maybe you spent years giving too much, trying too hard, shrinking your voice to make space for someone else's comfort. Maybe you've forgotten what it feels like to choose yourself without guilt, to say no, without fear, to be seen, without explaining. If that resonates with you, then let this be your moment of return. Not to something new, but to something ancient, something remembered. Carl Jung believed that wholeness does not come from becoming someone else. It comes from reclaiming the pieces we once gave away. Every time you embody your worth without explanation, every time you let your presence speak instead of your fear, every time you choose depth over noise, you take one step closer to that wholeness. So if this spoke to you, if something inside you whispered yes, then I invite you to leave a comment below and simply write, "I choose myself." Not for attention, not for validation, but as a quiet declaration, a personal moment of truth, a reminder to your own heart that it is time. And if you want to continue exploring this path of self-worth, depth, and transformation, feel free to subscribe. This space is here for you, not to fix you, but to remind you of who you already are. You do not need to chase. You do not need to prove. You only need to remember. And in that remembrance, everything begins to change.